Okay, we are on. Greetings, everybody. It is October 27th, 3:04 p.m. Central Time. My name is Carl Hawkinson, and I'm with the University of Minnesota Extension, Hennepin County. Great to see you all here, even the ones that I can't see. And I'm the coordinator of this Twin Cities Metro Growers Network, along with the Sustainable Farming Association of Minnesota. And the whole idea of the network was to network, get together, go to people's gardens and farms and wherever they are and be together and share together and learn together. And Mr. COVID kind of messed that up. But luckily we have these computers and the internet that can allow us to do that. I don't know about you, but I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this technology. But who am I to say? Anyway, greetings to you all on this beautiful sunny day. And I hope you turn off the darn computer and get out and run around once in a while. All right, so today I've been working with Daniel Mahoney, who he and I are assisting with the Emerging Farmers Conference planning group. And then I see that they've got some new staff and some new programs and new initiatives. And in a lot of the work I do, people are talking about grants and USDA programs and things come up. And for the uninitiated or the folks that are new to USDA programs, it can be challenging, to say the least. As we were talking before everybody got on, the feds love their acronyms. I mean, if you guys had to say every name all the time, you'd never get your work done, right? So, and Katie Federal is here, and she's going to be helping Mr. Not Tech Savvy run the show. And Katie, why don't you just introduce yourself briefly and say a word or two about Sustainable Farming Association?
Sure. I'm Katie Federal. I'm Communications Director for Sustainable Farming Association. And like Carl's been saying, with the Metro Growers Network being a farmer-to-farmer network, that's what SFA is too, at a large scale statewide. And so TC Growers is a networking group within SFA. When we have a few of those, and we have some regional chapters around the state. And it's all about farmers connecting for education opportunities, for support, for camaraderie and all that. So you can check in with the SFA website for more ways to get involved, more ways to connect. We have plenty of other mostly webinar opportunities coming up at this point in the season too. And we're looking forward to an annual conference in February. And I'll probably just keep rambling on. So I'm going to pass it back to Carl here. We're glad you're here.
Excellent. I'm going to, before we move on to our USDA colleagues, I'm just going to put up the web page. And I'm going to click some buttons here, and I'm going to share screen, and there you go. So that's our Twin Cities Metro Growers Network webpage. And this is the FSA world. I also coordinate the Service Livestock Network. And that's about using animals, livestock, biomimicry to restore landscapes and control buckthorn and all that. That's for another time. So here we are today, coming up. That's got to be changed, not coming up. It is. This is what we're doing today. You should have that. And then I wanted to show, if you click on here or past summaries and videos, that's what we've been up to this summer. And then I'm going to go back, and here you will find the handouts, not handing out anything, of what's going on today. So we've got EQIP handout, conservation stewardship handout, and et cetera, et cetera. So with that, Dan, you want to introduce yourself and your colleagues, and then I will pass it over to you, and you can start with a little bit about your programs and the new programs and things specific to non-commodity growers. And we will take questions as we go and see how she goes.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. I appreciate it. We've got quite a few folks here from USDA today, so I won't introduce everyone, but I'll kind of introduce our primary speakers and then just acknowledge the fact that we did send an invite out to our county operations trainees who are on the phone, which I really appreciate, are on the webinar with us, as well as our local USDA staff that represent some of the offices that are serving Metro growers. On the phone or on the webinar here today to present information from FSA, we have Brian Hartman, who is responsible for farm loan programs for the state of Minnesota. And he's going to be talking about the different farm loan options that are available through the Farm Service Agency. As Carl indicated, when you're talking about federal programs, there's a whole alphabet soup of acronyms and initialisms. Please interject and interrupt if we're not clear about that, or if you need us to explain the program that we're talking about in more clear terms. So Brian Hartman's going to be here talking about farm loans, and then from NRCS talking about the programs that serve urban agriculture, specialty crops. We have Keith Kloubec and Yara Gonzalez to talk, and I'll let them introduce themselves further as we go through. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about farm programs as they apply to agriculture in an urban setting, as Carl likes to call it. And then I will also talk about some of the initiatives that are at USDA right now that focus on new and beginning farmers and ranchers, as well as long-term goals for USDA and urban ag. And that should take us through, and please interrupt as we go through with questions. We want this to be engaging as much as possible, and I'm sure we'll allow some time for questions at the end as well. And with that, I guess I would pass it to Brian to start talking about those farm loans that everyone wants to learn about, right?
Thank you, Dan. All right. So the Farm Service Agency is part of the United States Department of Agriculture. And believe it or not, we have loan programs for farmers. Congress, many, many years ago, wanted to make sure that there was an adequate food supply for the United States. And they thought the best way to do that was make sure that there was plenty of farmers. And to help ensure that there are farmers, they thought it would be good that there be loan programs available to help farmers get started in farming, expand their operation, or recover from some type of disaster in their farming operation. So I'll talk a little bit about our loan programs. Just let you know that we work with about 5,000 farmers throughout the state of Minnesota between our loans and what we call loan guarantees. And I'll just mention those loan guarantees at the end. But you know, in and around the metro area, we have a number of vegetable and other types of operations that we have financed. We got some hydroponics. We have CSAs that we financed. You know, we've had mushroom operations in warehouses and in the metro area. So we have quite a variety of types of farming operations that we have financed, hops, orchards, vineyards, things of that nature. And, you know, for the farmers that are on the meeting today, you may have some difficulty finding some lenders that understand agriculture and understand your operation. And again, we have loan officers throughout the state, and particularly those loan officers that surround the metro area are used to dealing with urban type agriculture operations. So hopefully if you reach out to us, you can find somebody that would be familiar with your operation, which you might have more difficulty doing if you're you know, reaching out to Twin City Bank that's not experienced in agriculture.
And I would just chime in. If there's one thing y'all learned from tonight is there's this wonderful thing called a phone number You call these people and they'll answer any of your questions. That's what they're there for. That's what they're paid for. You can get lost on web pages, but there's real people that can help you.
Thanks, Carl. So most of our loans are what we call direct loans. And what direct loan means is it's a loan directly from the United States government to the farmer. Loan funds come out of the United States Treasury. And within our direct or loan programs, we have two main types of loans that we make. One's for production and operating type expenses and others for real estate. And I'll just focus first on our operating loans. Operating loans can be for crop production expenses, equipment, livestock, or refinance debts that you might have with another lender for those types of purposes. And we can make loans up to $400,000. That's the maximum. There is no minimum loan amount. We've made loans for $1,000, couple $1,000 before. So it's kind of whatever the farming operation needs. Those loans are typically repaid over 1 to 7 years, depending upon the purpose of the loan. So if a farmer gets a loan for crop production type expenses, then that loan would typically be repaid when the crop is sold, so normally within a 1 year period. If it's a loan for equipment, something of that nature, it's probably going to be 5 to 7 year term on that loan. And with our loan programs, our interest rates are fixed for the life of the loan. And you are reading the screen right. The current interest rate is 1.375% on those types of loans. So very favorable interest rates that we have on loans. Basically, the government is lending the money out for something close to what it costs the government to borrow money for interest on bonds. So we have real estate loans too, which we call farm ownership loans. And those real estate loans would be used to purchase real estate, potentially construct or improve buildings on real estate, or maybe for well septic systems that would be needed for the farming operation. And those loans can be up to $600,000 maximum loan amount. And occasionally we run into farmers that need more than $600,000. And a lot of times we can partner with other lenders to provide the financing. So another lender might provide part of the financing, have a first mortgage on the real estate. The Farm Service Agency would come in with the balance of funds needed with a second mortgage on that real estate. And I could talk for quite a while about the different types of farm ownership loans we have. We have the various variations of those loans, but the loans can be, depending on the type of loan, anywhere from a 20-year loan to a 40-year loan. And the interest rates right now have a pretty narrow range of interest rates. It can be as low as 1.5%. And our highest interest rate is at 2.375%. And again, that would be fixed for the life of the loan. So again, favorable interest rates. So you're probably thinking, this sounds too good to be true, right? Well, there are some requirements that have to be met. We've got what we call some eligibility requirements, and I'll hit on a couple of the main ones. And also, to make a loan, the farmer would need to demonstrate the ability to repay a loan, and we'll take a quick look at what we consider when we make that determination. There does need to be collateral for the loan, and there are certain environmental requirements that need to be met. And I'm not going to focus too much on that issue, but the main thing I would say is if a loan is going to be used for some type of a building purpose or well or septic, it's kind of like the signs that you see around the neighborhood that might be, call before you dig. It's kind of the same thing with FSA with our loans. If there's going to be ground disturbance below the normal plow ground layer, then we want you to reach out to us before you do any work.
I've got a question there. Do you need to have an FSA number to qualify for a loan?
No particular number. An applicant would need a social security number or a tax ID number to apply. But I'm not sure if that's the question or not.
I guess from other loan programs, I had a question about to identify as a farm operation? Do you have to do that in any formal way?
No, I mean, what we would require is that the loan application come in the name of the actual producer that's producing the commodities. So if it's an individual, it'd be the individual's name and their social security number. If it's an entity that is the actual producer, we would need the entity and potentially entity documents and a tax ID number for that entity.
Hey, this is Dan. I was just going to interject that many USDA Farm Service Agency programs on the farm program side do require a farm number for acreage reporting or some of those other compliance purposes. But that's my interjection.
So I mentioned those low interest rates we have. There is a bit of a catch, and that catch is that a farmer can only get a loan from the Farm Service Agency if that farmer is not able to secure their credit needs through commercial lenders. So we don't try to compete with the banks. Our role is to supplement the banks when the bank is not willing to make a loan to the farmer. Most cases, that does not require that loan applicant first apply to a commercial lender. That the farmer can come into FSA, and typically we can take a look at some of the financial information that from the farmer, a balance sheet listing their assets and debts, if they have farming history, what type of income they've had from that farming operation. And from that, we work with enough lenders that we can generally tell if the farmer could qualify for financing through a commercial lender or not. So that's, don't think you have to apply with a commercial lender first. You can walk in the door and we can take a look at the situation. We do have a requirement that the farmer needs to have adequate farm experience. And again, this is something I could spend an hour probably talking about, but we'll keep it real brief. For those operating loans, and that's for the production loan, the equipment type loans, we require that the farmer have 1 year of farm experience or equivalent training. And equivalent training could be participate in a mentorship type program, could be classes. There's various things that can meet that requirement.
So for example, Tim Wilson just chimed in and he teaches a class out at the Arboretum. Something like that, I think, would qualify. That could qualify. And the other factor what comes into play is we factor the experience with the size and the scope of the farming operation. So, smaller operation would be a lower bar for that farm experience and training. A much larger complex operation would be a little bit higher bar. And for our real estate loans, there is a requirement for 3 years of farming experience. And I got quotes around the word farming because there's a whole lot of things that can qualify there. Could be some previous business experience. It could actually be military service or education. So we got about a bullet of 10 or 11 different factors that can be checked off to help meet that 3 years of farming experience. But in most cases, we would be looking at a loan applicant having been associated with a farming operation, doing some level of labor and some level of management, or generally 2 out of the 3 years. So the idea isn't somebody that you haven't been on a farm before. We don't want to start you off with a real estate loan. We want you to get some basic experience first. Bottom line is you want people to be successful. And these are guidelines. So if you come in and you want a loan, you gotta make your case. You gotta offer up some credentials, some whatever it is that you got, but you can't just walk in and say, hey, how about that loan? But it's so these aren't hard and fast necessarily, but you guys take into consideration the whole story.
Right, there's a gamut of experiences and things that can be taken into consideration in looking at that, correct?
So if I am a beginning farmer, I am looking for a loan to purchase land. I do not have necessarily hands-on farming experience, but I do have other technical experiences and have been working on purchasing land to farm. Does that mean that I do not qualify for this?
That's a good question, and I don't want to overgeneralize too much. I think we want you to have contact with one of our loan officers to look at that history, but I will say in most cases, it's going to take a certain amount of time, and generally 2 years, that you have actually been involved in a farming operation, providing some level of labor and some level of management.
Thank you.
Okay. And like almost all lenders, we do require acceptable credit history for our loans. And when we're looking at acceptable credit history, if we have somebody young or new starting out, they may not have any credit history at all, and that's okay. No credit history is fine. If a person has had some credit problems, and we would pull a credit report and look at that credit report, then we're going to dig a little bit deeper and make a determination if those credit problems or issues were within the control of the applicant or caused by something outside their control, such as loss of a job, maybe medical expenses, issues like that. And there is a requirement that the applicant either be a citizen or a legal alien. And there's some additional eligibility requirements that we don't run into the issues too often, so I'm not gonna dive into those today. And we do require that an applicant demonstrate repayment ability for the loan, and typically that's done through the loan officer and the farmer preparing a cash flow projection. And that cash flow projection would need to demonstrate that between the farm income and any non-farm income for that applicant, there would be enough income coming in to pay the farm expenses, to pay their living expenses, and to pay their debt payments, and have at least $1 left over. And that can be demonstrated, we can make the loan. So we don't look at any ratios or anything like that. It's strictly on a cash flow basis that we make that determination. And we also require that there be collateral for the loan. And that minimum collateral amount would be $1 of collateral for each dollar that we're going to lend out. And how we would look at that collateral determination, if we're making a loan for crop input expenses, crop production expenses, we would value the crop equal to the loan amount. So we would determine that that crop will provide at least $1 of collateral for each dollar that we're going to loan. If the loan purpose is going to be to purchase equipment or livestock or real estate, we would appraise that equipment, livestock, or real estate, and that appraisal would need to demonstrate that there again would be that $1 of collateral for each dollar that we're going to loan. And that one-to-one collateral is the minimum. Ideally, if possible, we try to get to $1.50 of collateral for each dollar that we're going to loan out. But it's only if the farmer has it available. So if somebody's starting out, might not have any other assets, as long as there's at least $1 of collateral for each dollar we're going to loan, we're going to be okay. But for those people that have built up some other assets, we will look at taking a lien on those other assets as security for that loan. So how do you apply or get more information on the loans? Again, we have offices throughout the state, and we have 4 main offices that would serve the metro area. And it's kind of broken up. It's kind of a little bit like a pie shape coming into the metro area. But from the south, we have an office in Rochester. From the east, from the west, we have office in Glencoe. And towards the, also from the west and north, we got Hennepin and Wright counties are served by our office in Wade Park. And for the directly to the north, for Anoka, Chisago, Asante counties, we have an office in Mora. So Carl, I'll make sure I get you this presentation, and if you have the ability to distribute it or make it available to the people on the call today, please do.
Excellent. Thank you.
We'll also just mention that I'm not going to get into the details of the loan application, but I will say that we do have what we call a micro loan. And a micro loan would be a loan of $50,000 or less. And for microloan situations, it's a reduced application package. So there's less information we're going to get from that applicant to determine if they qualify for that loan. And I did mention earlier about loan guarantees. And FSA does have a guarantee program where we can guarantee loans made by commercial lenders. And that guarantee basically is an insurance policy to the lender that if the farmer is not able to repay the loan, FSA would step in and repay 90% of the loan to that lender. So it reduces the lender's risk and makes the lender more willing to make the loan to the farmer. Those guaranteed loans are usually used by farmers that are more established, maybe have larger credit needs. We can guarantee up to $1,776,000 of loans. That's kind of a strange dollar amount, but it's indexed and changes on an annual basis. And with our guarantee program, the interest rate and terms are negotiated between the farmer and the lender. And to apply for those loans, the farmer reaches out to the lender, and the lender determines if the lender wants to submit a guarantee request to the Farm Service Agency, so that request actually is originated by the lender, not the farmer. And I've been rambling on, I think, for more than my time, so I appreciate the patience, but from the information I provided, are there other questions for me at this point?
We do have one in the chat asking if a microloan can be used for real estate.
It can, yep. So as long as that $50,000 limit on the microloan would meet the needs, it can be. So potentially a small tract purchase or building improvement on a property. So yes, it will.
Another one here, how long is the process?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So and that's a little bit hard to answer because each application is a little bit different, but our average processing time for all of our loan applications is about 30 days from the time we get the first application form from our customer until we're able to say yes or no to the farmer. And it may be somewhat longer before we would actually close the loan and the farmer would get the loan funds. So if it's one of those operating loans, that loan closing process is probably just maybe another week longer. If it's a real estate loan, we generally do not do the real estate appraisal until after we determine that there is repayment ability for the loan and the farmer meets the eligibility requirements. So that appraisal process and title work for the closing, that could add another 30 to 60 days onto the process before the loan would be closed. So the real estate loans, they're probably a 3 to 4 month process on average from the time of the application until the loan is closed and the funds are distributed. The operating loans, closer to the 30-day average.
And then, apologies if this was part of your answer already. Do you need a purchase agreement before applying for this loan?
We will need a purchase agreement. Yes, because the farm, what the farm can generate for income is dependent upon the size and resources of the farming operation. We do need a purchase agreement to know that there is a specific property to be purchased, to make that determination that that property will generate the income needed for repayment. So unlike, say, a housing loan where you can get pre-qualified, it's not that way with loan program here. We do need a purchase agreement to make that determination that that the farm can support the loan.
Okay, and then if the purchase agreement expires before the application is complete, will you be denied?
I guess we'd be hopeful that the person can work to extend the purchase agreement. We don't see much of an issue with that, but again, we'll need that purchase agreement to determine that that farm can demonstrate repayment ability for that loan that's being requested.
Okay, we got a couple more in the chat here. Can loans be used for equipment or infrastructure on leased or rented land?
So it's possible. So I'm assuming that equipment would be, so let me back up and break it down into two parts real quickly. If it's movable equipment, then certainly. If it's going to be equipment that's going to be fixed to the real estate, so maybe potentially irrigation equipment or freezers or things of that nature, then what we would require is that the lease on the property be for the term of the loan. So if somebody wants a 5-year loan, that lease on the real estate would be have a term of 5 years.
Gotcha. And then this one from a couple people. Why would someone choose to get a loan through a commercial lender guaranteed by FSA instead of just going through SFA or FSA? I do that all the time, since they're using FSA regardless.
Yeah, it comes into a couple factors there. If we think that the farmer's financial position is such that they could get a guarantee, we're going to ask that farmer to approach a lender for that guarantee first. So part of this, where we're not trying to compete with other commercial lenders, would apply. And so we would encourage that farmer, or ask that farmer to check out commercial lenders. The other thing would be, and this is pretty common, where the need of the farming operation, their loan needs exceed our direct loan limits of $400,000 for the operating or $600,000 for the real estate. And there are times where we do both types of loan, particularly with real estate. We'll do both a direct loan for part of the purchase price and a guaranteed loan for the balance.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm going to barge in here. I'm sure there's more questions. Check out the chat. Brian, you can always respond to people in the chat. And so a couple things. You need some experience. You need some background. You need to get some paperwork in order. And it's going to take some time. And if you go in and it doesn't work, do it again. Upgrade your... Don't just give up at the first chance. It could be frustrating, I know. But it can all be worked out. And depending on where your starting point is, I would say just do your homework. A lot of legal financial stuff is as fun as going to the dentist, but it's time well spent. All right, Daniel, I'll turn it back to you. Where are we going next?
I think we'll go over to NRCS if you guys are ready.
We are ready.
Sounds good. We are. So I think my coworker, Yara Gonzalez, she was not able to get into Zoom, but I think she is able to call in. So we were going to kind of do a tag team here. So my name is Keith Kloubec. I've been with NRCS over 15 years now, working out in Western Minnesota, Carver County, Brooklyn Center, and now in St. Paul. And my official title, like Carl said, we have lots of acronyms. I'm an assistant state conservationist for programs, which just means I'm assistant to our state conservationist, Troy Daniel, and I work on programs in St. Paul. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background for those of you that aren't familiar with NRCS and just kind of how we operate at the different levels, a little bit of our history, partnering and how things work. And then Yara Gonzalez will go into a little bit of our normal processes, and then we'll each kind of split up and cover some specifics on our environmental quality incentive program, which Yara is our program manager for, and then also the conservation stewardship program. So at any time, as Carl said, just jump in with questions, interrupt if there's chat questions, you know, throw them out there or interrupt me, please. Katie, Carl, we want this just kind of be as interactive as we can. So for those of you that don't know, NRCS, we started a while ago back in the Dust Bowl. So we started out as a soil conservation service, and we're really focused on soil erosion that was occurring at the time. Our programs and other things really came available in the 80s after the farming crisis then, when some of the, what we call the Farm Bill, passed some differences where the additional programs and assistance were available, as well as some of the compliance requirements. And then in like 1994, our name from Soil Conservation Service, SCS, was changed to the Natural Resource Conservation Service, because Soil Conservation Service is probably too short, so we had to lengthen the name, and it better reflects what we do, which is more than just soils. So we look at all resources out there, from all land uses, from pasture to forest, farmsteads to cropland, and urban agriculture is a part of that as well, that we haven't always been real strong in, but it's something that we are definitely trying to improve on, and get more opportunities and more options and more knowledge and specialty for a lot of our staff as well. So in Minnesota, we're structured, you know, the state is very diverse. We have 4 areas that kind of manage our different service centers and staff. Within that, we have 21 what we call customer service teams. So that's a group of counties from 3 to 6 that kind of work together. So resources are shared, information, kind of coordinating some of their efforts. So kind of like a little mini area within Minnesota. And within that, then there's 82 field offices. So we do have pretty wide distribution of staff. Normally we are, and most of our what we call service centers with the Farm Service Agency as our partners. Quite often we are co-located or next to some of our soil and water conservation district partners as well, because they are delivering much of the similar mission, just on county and state programs. All right. So what I was saying is that, yeah, and so our programs and with NRCS, it's voluntary conservation. So it's nothing, we don't have enforcement. If you enroll in the USDA farm program, it does come with some requirements for certain compliance requirements, but it's voluntary conservation. So if you aren't in the program, we aren't out enforcing anything. In order to be into our programs, you do have to establish records, much like was said earlier, some of the FSA records, farm records, and just some of that, so we can tie our applications and our assistance back to an individual. And so one of the things that we provided, we don't have any PowerPoints, we just have a few fact sheets, and then there's some additional links on there. You can also go to our Minnesota website or the national one and look up lots of different things, from urban conservation and agriculture to all of our different programs and practices and standards. But we do offer not just financial assistance in our programs, but we do offer technical assistance. So in some cases, somebody that doesn't want to sign up for our environmental quality incentive program or this conservation stewardship program, that doesn't mean we stop you at the door and say, no, you know, we're not going to provide assistance. We still offer conservation technical assistance, which just means we have information on soils and soil health, irrigation, engineering practices, other practices that we would offer through those programs, and it doesn't have to come with the financial assistance side of it. So sometimes in urban agriculture, we do honestly have a harder time of finding a fit in some of our programs. A lot of our programs, as you know, are based on a per acre payment rate, and if you are farming a half an acre, to do the paperwork, to sign up, the processing to get $15 for a cover crop, it probably isn't worth your time in many cases. So those are the opportunities that we still, though, would be love to provide some discussion on opportunities for what's the seeding rate for a cover crop, well, how should it be terminated, you know, those type of things. What are the benefits if I'm trying to break up compaction on an old lot? What could I use? So there's a lot of those resources that we want to also promote, besides just our financial assistance that are available to anyone that walks in our door through our conservation technical assistance. So those are just a few. One of the things I would caution you about too is with the COVID situation going on, a lot of our offices are with locked doors, so it's appointments only. So just be aware if you want to. Normally it would be pop on into the office, introduce yourself when you're in town. I see Dan shaking his head saying same thing. You know, we're co-located with FSA. Just be aware and give a call and schedule time, because we are limited in many of our offices based on the current situation with how many people can come in or how we're meeting or how we're handling stuff, and it varies by office. So we just ask that you call and make appointments ahead of time. So those were just a few of the things I wanted to kick off with, a little bit of the background of NRCS. If there's not any questions on that, or if there are, I'll turn it over to Yara if she is able to kind of speak through some of our general processes that we utilize for all of our programs. Yara?
Are your materials on EQIP and CSP in multiple languages? If so, which ones?
We do, correct. Yes, I didn't share those. We do have some Hmong versions, and we do also have fact sheets in Spanish. I don't know that we have any others available than that currently.
And then quickly, there's a question about, does NRCS have structured training programs? I don't believe so, but I could be wrong.
No, not structured like in terms of
Yeah.
you know, introduction to farming or those type of things. We participate in some of those activities, and our training is more in field days and outreach events, things like that.
Okay.
All right, Yara.
Yeah.
So sorry, technical issues, but if you want to kind of go through the basic, you know, planning application
Yeah.
process, that would be great.
Yes, sure. I was just going to cover here how, you know, if you want to go through an application, what's the process, the general process, just thinking like if you have not done this before. So you can complete an application. Applications are accepted on a continuous basis, so you can sign an application anytime. Now, we do have some cutoff periods for ranking the applications and evaluation process. So, you know, just keep in mind those. But yeah, anytime you can sign an application anytime throughout the year. Then you want to make sure you establish your records. If you don't have any records, or if you do, just update your farm records at the Farm Service Agency, which that includes like completing documentation for being in compliance with highly erodible land and wetland conservation documentation. So just pretty much what we call establishing your farm records at the Farm Service Agency. And then we will work with you, making sure we develop a plan to address the resource concerns, needs, and making sure that is something that will work for you for sure. And if that's, you know, something that you're really interested to move forward to, then we will process your application. We will rank it. We will go through the process of ranking the applications. Now, if your application is selected, then we will develop a contract. And all this is, you know, open communication with you and making sure that you are on board and everything, and that all the paperwork, it's right for you and it's what you want to do. And once we review the contract, then you can sign it. Once it's signed, you know, you will have a contract and you will have to complete the practices that we agree on. Once the practices are implemented, you know, you let us know, we certify the completion, and we will process payments for those practices that were completed. That is pretty much a summary of, you know, the kind of the process from like when you apply to getting the contract and, you know, applying those practices and getting your payments for them. I don't know if anyone have questions.
Yeah, Katie, you want to tick off some of the questions in the chat for Yara?
Yeah, absolutely. What is the cutoff for EQIP in 2020 and 2021?
Yes, so we just announced it. It's going to be November 20th, 2020 for the first sign up. We will be looking at potentially to have a second sign up, and that will be in March for 2021 too. So.
Great. Okay, and then does a farmer have to go through the FSA office in order to apply for an NRCS program like EQIP? And how does EQIP work in
Sure.
conjunction with the Minnesota Ag Water Certification Program?
Sure. So the reason you have to go and establish records, first of all, that's the number one question in the application for EQIP. We just got to make sure that all the records are established there. A lot of their information, it just comes in our system, so it's kind of all connected. So yeah, it's part of the whole process. And then I don't know, what was the other question?
Yes, I threw two at you at once there. How does EQIP work in conjunction with the Minnesota Ag Water Certification Program?
Yeah, so for the Ag Water Certification Program, we do kind of, if you're applying for that and you have some practices that were identified, then you can apply through EQIP and you can receive financial and technical assistance, of course, to get those implement those practices, so then you can work towards obtaining your certification for the Minnesota Ag program.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
just
all.
to build on the Ag Water Quality Certification. So they do have an RCPP, which is a Regional Conservation Partnership Program, another long name for a program that they were awarded, and it was just renewed. So we, through normal EQIP, as Yara mentioned, we can work on practices that people are wanting to do to get certified or gain certification or improve on those that are already certified. But through this Regional Conservation Partnership Program, MDA is also able to leverage some federal money for contracts specific to how they want to set up kind of their own EQIP-like sign up that's only for participants in that. So their recent project just ended, but they were awarded a renewal. So we'll be having a sign up probably for that along with our second sign up in March. We're kind of developing the agreement with them currently. And so there's kind of two sides to that part with EQIP and how we're, and it also apply to CSP as well with the MDA and their Ag Water Quality Certification Program. If there aren't any other questions, and Yara, do you just want to give kind of a quick overview of EQIP? I mean, Carl, how much time do we need to?
Well, we got
speed
until
this up?
4:30, so we're good.
But Dan, you guys have quite a bit left on the agenda, or?
I can always give a quick version of it
Okay.
and provide some information and links for people
Okay.
to go to.
Well,
And they have all your emails too, so they're just going to email
Okay.
you.
all right, perfect. But Yara, do you want to just give a quick few minutes on EQIP, and then I'll do kind of a quick summary of CSP, and then see if there's any other questions on our programs.
Sure. So the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, we call EQIP, EQIP. So it is a voluntary conservation program, and we do provide the technical and the financial assistance to implement your conservation practices. And the focus is to, protect our natural resources. So the people that are, let's say, this program is available, the people that are available to this program are farmers, ranchers, and forest land owners who either own or rent the agricultural land or this land. The way the program works, you can come to, the easiest way is to come to the office, field office, visit with us. We normally like to go out in the field with you, review and see what, identify those resource concerns that are out there. And we work with you on developing a plan to meet your goals, the vision that you have for your land, and ways to address those resource concerns with those conservation practices that we have available. EQIP has probably, it's over 100 conservation practices. And we also, like I said, we have that financial assistance that helps cover part of the cost to implement those practices that you need. Just wanted to kind of give an example we're looking at the metro area, some of the more scale farms, some of the conservation practices that are kind of famous through the EQIP program are like the high tunnel system, cover crops, pollinator plantings, a lot of people interested in pollinators. So we can help, identify good areas that you can plant pollinators and, provide some habitat. Tree planting is another good one too. So just to give you an idea of some of the practices that we see common in the area, the metro area. So we do, have some practices that, if it works for you and your operation, you can look to applying for either technical or the financial part of it. But really the best way to do this, to learn more about the EQIP and how really will fit your operation, will be to contact the office, your local office, and that establish your records if you need to with the FSA right there, and yeah, so that you can move forward.
Hey, Yara, this is Carl.
Yep.
How are you? Nice to hear your voice.
I'm good, and you? I know.
Good.
It's been a while.
A couple things. When you say contact your office, for some in the metro that, like Hennepin, there's grouped offices. So if there's some nice way to share who to call, depending on what county you live in. And then also, I see there was some changes to EQIP proposed or enacted. I'm not sure. Would you be able to speak to those?
I'm not sure what changes are you referring to, Carl.
Well, I guess that was, they were looking for comment on proposals, I think. Is that correct? Does anybody know?
Oh, I think you're referring. So with the passing of the Farm Bill, it was the comment period for the new EQIP rules.
Oh, okay.
I think, yeah. So with the passing of the 18 Farm Bill, there were changes, and then the new draft rules or interim rules were written with a comment period, and they just closed that and kind of finalized some of the rules based on those comments. So they, addressed them. There weren't a lot of major changes in the final rule from the interim rule. They did some minor language changes. There were some substantial changes in EQIP with the overall Farm Bill, where the percentages of dollars, this is, getting in the weeds, but we're supposed to, as a nation, NRCS across the nation, target 50% of our funds towards livestock operations in EQIP. In the past, it was 60. We have to now target 10% of our wildlife funds, our funds towards wildlife. In the past, that was 5%. And then they also brought in some additional requirements for source water protection. There also continue to be some prioritization towards beginning farmers, socially disadvantaged veteran farmers, some additional payment rates that we offer, higher payment rates. So a lot of those things were similar to the past Farm Bill and past program implementation. They just carried forward, and then some minor tweaks towards some of the other program implementation items with the new Farm Bill.
So would it be safe to say over the last 10 years plus, there's been a expansion into non-traditional areas, urban and non-commodity and disadvantaged populations and that sort of thing?
Definitely, yeah. That's something that I think we still have a ways to improve on. Like I mentioned earlier, we historically have been working out in the rural areas, and that's where a lot of our staff is. But we have had in the past urban conservationist on staff, and due to some of the hiring for freeze and other the restrictions, it's something that once it was retired or done away with, we haven't gotten it back. But that is on our list of potential, hopefully in the next year, to hire somebody back to kind of help coordinate some more of the urban agriculture. But yeah, we're looking at more emphasis on non-industrial private forest land, you know, categorizing bees as livestock so that we can help with more of the, you know, like the grazing of bees on pollinator habitat and things like that have opened up some opportunities, along with some other urban agricultural grants. The High Tunnel program that was a pilot that now is a practice that's in our, along with our other practices that we can utilize. So yeah, there is expansion. It probably is a long ways from where a lot of people would like to see it go, but it's something that we're working towards improvement on that.
Well, a squeaky wheel gets the grease, I'd say. And Liz was going to join us. Could you speak to her new position?
Liz was unable to make it here today, but you know, she did provide me some comments regarding the beginning farmer rancher program that's being rolled out on a national level through USDA, and that involves a lot of partnership, not just between Farm Service Agency and Natural Resource Conservation Service, who's on the phone today, but also Rural Development and Risk Management Agency. So we've got representatives on the Beginning Farmer Rancher program for the state from all of the agencies. And what the targeted goal there is out of the 2018 Farm Bill is to create a focus and effort to work together as agencies to develop tools to make it easier for farmers to start farming and work with us in that process. We are just in the infancy here of rolling that program out and getting it started, but there's a web page which we provided to Carl earlier, and there are Liz Ludwig, who is a county executive director in Chippewa County for FSA, or Farm Service Agency, is our coordinator for our state. And so the role that she has been playing is, because her name is out there on the website, a lot of beginning farmers and ranchers have been reaching out to her and talking about what kind of operation they're looking to start, you know, what their long-term vision is for their farm operation. And what she's been doing is connecting those people with their local USDA offices, talking to them about resources and programs that are available. And the long-term vision is that when any beginning farmer contacts their local office, they're going to have that same scope and breadth of knowledge across all programs, across all agencies as we go forward. And so we look forward to working with our partners as that program develops here in the state to continue that. And that's a big part of that 2018 Farm Bill for us.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions about EQIP at this point? You mentioned the wildlife. If I'm not a farmer and I have an acre or half acre and I want to do pollinator habitat, do you have to be a farmer, or can you be a landowner?
Landowners are eligible as well. So we have a lot of times where landowners are enrolling practices on their land that have a longer lifespan. So as Yara mentioned, we have a lot of practices, and that's one of the strings that comes with the financial assistance, is that you have to follow our practice standards. So if we say, in order to do a honeybee pollinator habitat, you have to have this many species, this variety, this type, we can't certify and pay on it with taxpayer dollars unless it meets our practice standards. That's kind of the technical part of it. So a lot of owners sign up for the long-term practices if it's vegetative in some cases, or if we're doing grass waterways or water and sediment control basins for gully erosion that are going to be longer term, they'll invest in that infrastructure and sign up with us quite often because it goes with the land. It's something that's going to be there for 10, 15 years versus like a one-year cover crop that would be signed up by the operator of the land in a rented land scenario.
Yeah, I posted a while back the laundry list of practices, and some of them have kind of wonky names, but there's a lot of things on there. It's a great toolbox.
There are, and Yara had run some numbers on just our general EQIP, and a lot of our dollars go towards the top 10, top 15. There's some other opportunities out there, but the interest, honestly, in CSP and EQIP in Minnesota is very large. It's way more than we have. We're funding about 30% of our applications currently. So by no means is it a slam dunk to come in and get a contract. As Yara mentioned, that process, there's the ranking and the competition is very high, but it's a good place to start, and it's a good place to build that connection to your local technical specialists. And you know, if you don't get a contract, hopefully there'll still be some technical assistance and some knowledge that we can share, or some information to help with, even if it doesn't work out your first try in a contract.
Yes, it's competitive. And I would also say contact your federal representatives. Squeaky wheel, right?
Yeah, and I was just going to add here
Uh-huh.
too, we just revamped our equip portion of the Minnesota NRCS website. So it's a lot easier to navigate through, and we have good information there. You can also click to the service center, you know, that might work for you best, and get the contact information, everything there in there too. So just, you know, another way to kind of get more additional information, or a good start as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. All right. Where to next, Dan?
Keith, you're done, and I can take over.
I was going to do a quick CSP.
Oh, I'm
We didn't
sorry. Yeah,
really
go
touch
ahead.
on that, but I'm going to make it very, very short.
Okay.
Please go.
CSP is a conservation stewardship program, so that was on the agenda, so I don't want to just skip it over, but it's kind of the building block of EQIP in a lot of ways. It is for those that are doing stewardship already. It requires you to enroll your entire operation. So if you have cropland, a pasture, a farmstead, and associated ag land like odd corners, we have to evaluate the whole operation, everything you have control of, and it's a 5-year contract. So in a lot of cases in CSP, we're evaluating many or all the resource concerns and all your land uses. It's a lot more in-depth evaluation, planning process. Some of our operations, it's taking several hours to go through an application with someone, depending on the complexity of their operation, the number of fields, those, you know, different variations. But the benefit of it is that you get evaluated on what you're already doing, the existing stewardship, plus the additional activities that you're going to be adopting through CSP. So it could be their conservation practices, or in CSP, we also have enhancements, which take that conservation practice of just doing, you know, a conservation cover grass seeding and taking it to a higher level of making it for monarchs specifically, or something like that. So there's a lot of benefits in there. We look at agricultural operations, non-industrial private forest land are some popular things. And that's similar to EQIP. We're doing a lot of cover crops, a lot of pollinator habitat plantings, conservation crop rotation, nutrient and pest management, and tree plantings and tree management, forest management are some of our more popular practices in CSP. So CSP is, you know, it's definitely more complex because of the 5 years and the entire egg operation, but it's a good option for someone that's got, you know, their basic farming stuff done and is looking, you know, a lot of the basic practices and looking at taking it to the next level in conservation.
Yeah, I would say it's really encourages you to, it's a concept of continual improvement, not just to do this or that practice and call it good enough, but to keep working on your property and keep improving it.
Yeah.
I see we have some questions, Katie.
Yeah. Is there a minimum amount of funding or a maximum amount of funding for CSP?
So CSP, there's no size limit, but we do have a minimum payment of $1,500 a year. So if your operation comes in, you're eligible and awarded a contract, and it is going to be less than that based on the evaluation of your application. So in CSP, there's 2 main payment types. There's one that is the existing payment. So we evaluate what you're already doing and going to maintain for the life of the contract. There's a payment for that based on the number of resource concerns met and the acres, and this is where it gets complicated. So someone yell at me if I'm getting too far in the weeds, but I will move on quickly. And the other part of it is the additional activities. So everything else you're doing that's going to be new, all the practices and enhancements. So if that comes up to less than $1,500 a year, you get a minimum payment. The maximum is $200,000 for a contract, or $400,000 depending on the type of structure you have. Certain entities where you've got partnerships and joint ventures have the higher payment limitation allowed in CSP.
All right. And then can a person get multiple CSP contracts that is consecutive?
So CSP, yes, we have separate contracts for the non-industrial private forest land and separate ones for ag, which would be crop pasture. So you could have two at the same time. Otherwise, there is an opportunity in CSP for renewals. So once your 5-year contract expires, you have an opportunity to sign up for a renewal contract. And what that is you're then building off of 5 years of what you've already done, plus those additional activities now become your new benchmark condition. And now on top of that, you are now doing additional activities, kind of like Carl said, you keep on building on that. I was here, first contract, I'm here. Second contract, now I'm here and I'm going to here. You're just building on that conservation and that stewardship. So that is an option in CSP, the renewal contract.
You'll never be done managing the land.
The technology, the activities, everything else happening, what we're learning, it's constant improvement.
Excellent. All right, Dan, why don't we jump into the next thing? Or was there another question? I'm sorry.
There was one more if we got time.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. How does EQIP and CSP work when the farmer is a renter, which most emerging farmers are?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we require is a self-certification of control of land. So that's where the FSA farm records can come into play. If you bring in a lease that you are operating that or have other records established with FSA on that, that is kind of the self-certification when you sign the application and tell us I will have these 4 fields or these 2 fields. And then we do periodic spot checks on that, but it's a self-certification. And the only kind of catch to that is if you're going to do a structural or vegetative practice, which would be like the grass waterway or an egg waste storage system or a high tunnel on rented land or a planting that's more than 1 year, like a pollinator planting, you have to have written concurrence from that landowner to install that. So then you can get a piece of paper, or we have a signed statement that kind of says, I agree that Keith Kloubec can install this practice. I give my concurrence as a landowner, and the landowner can sign it. So there is a requirement of that, just so that we're ensuring that the landowner is aware that these longer lifespan practices are planning to be installed on land that is being operated.
And then do you have a fact sheet or talking points that a tenant could use when they're approaching their landlord to agree to conservation changes?
We have lots of fact sheets. I don't know if we have anything specifically towards like the landlord side of things. Something we maybe, I'll reach out to our public affairs person and see if there is something that's more targeted towards that, the landowner conversation side of it.
And that was from Teresa Cavaney, and she runs Sustainable Farming Association.
Oh, yeah.
So if you find something, you know where to find her.
Yes.
But we'd all like to know. Good question. All right, Dan, now I think we're ready for you. The next phase of our enlightening conversation.
Yep, just because of the time limit, what I'll actually do is I can kind of just do a quick overview of some of the programs that are available. And we can, of course, follow up with additional information. Farm Service Agency and NRCS are going to be around for a long time. And so we can always do follow-ups if there's an appetite for that as well. I'm just going to, so just Brian had a chance to introduce the Farm Service Agency and talk about what we've done, but we've been around for 80 years. We have 11,000 plus dedicated staff. We're in 51 states and over 2,000 counties. So we're everywhere. We're not too far away, and that includes in the metro. Brian talked a little bit about how you can find your local farm loan office. Our farm loan offices are co-located with our farm program offices. However, there are more farm program offices than farm loan. So you might not be as far away from your FSA office as you thought you were. And I want to make sure to leave you guys with this information. If you go to the USDA Service Center locator, you can actually click on your local service center or county, and it will actually show you where to find your NRCS or Natural Resource Conservation Service, your Farm Service Agency, and your rural development staff. And because of the way that the offices are structured with USDA, it might be a different office. But if you take anything away from the presentation, it's that we are here to help. We are service agencies across the board, and there's a phone number. Do not be afraid to call it. There are email addresses. Don't be afraid to email them. Carl has something that he likes to say that I really like, which is it's not the USDA, it's our USDA. You know, as taxpayers and citizens, this is your USDA, and we're here to deal with farmers and landowners, of course, on the NRCS side too. The structure of FSA is farm programs and farm loans. You heard a little bit from Brian on the farm loan, so I won't touch on that. But on the farm program side, we have safety net programs, conservation reserve programs, and then more of those administrative farm records side on that. Our safety net programs are broad, and what I'm just going to do, because I have limited time, is just kind of give you an idea on a few of these. So you'll see the one that says NAP, or Non-Insurables Assistance Program, or non-insured. What that is, it's crop insurance for crops that are not covered under crop insurance. So you might be a fruit and vegetable grower. This is an option for you to manage the risk on your operation. LIP, Livestock Indemnity Program, is for those livestock losses. For people who are raising cattle or other types of livestock and lose livestock due to disasters. ELAP is for farm-raised fish and for honeybee losses. Once again, those cover anything from weather losses to colony collapse disorder on the honeybee side. TAP, which is the Tree Assistance Program, is for trees and vines that are lost due to natural disasters. And so a lot of the programs that we're looking at here are programs for existing operations. And that is true for urban ag operations just as much as it is true for ag and rural areas. So as I went through each of these, if you're a livestock grower, know that there are disaster programs. So if you're losing your livestock due to disasters, there are options, whether it's cattle, honeybees, trees, or just your general kind of crop insurance alternative through the non-insured crop disaster program. This provides assistance to producers of non-insurable crops when low yields, losses of inventory, or prevented planting occurs due to natural disasters. The other thing that I want to make sure, and I'm touching on these rather quickly just because of the limited time, is the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. If you are raising crops or livestock as part of a commercial operation here in Minnesota, you need to be reaching out on the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. It has expanded greatly from the first round, and there are a lot more commodities available. And I'm going to show you a link here. So first of all, a person has to be commercially engaged in that, and a producer has to be no contract growers for that. And so what I want to direct you guys to, for those that are on the call that are commercially growing, is we have a website, farmers.gov/CFAP, and there's a commodity finder on that website. And that commodity finder will allow you to select a different type of crop, and it will show you the payment rate for it. And what this program is doing is it's trying to offset some of the expenses due to additional marketing expenses due to the coronavirus as how it's impacted farming. This is pretty important, but if you can start off with going to this website and then reaching out to your county office, that's a good start. The other thing that I wanted to take just a moment to touch on here today is the Farm Storage Facility Program. So Brian talked a little bit about farm loans and what we can do with that. For the Farm Storage Facility Loan Program, or FSFL, that provides low interest financing for producers to store, handle, or transport eligible commodities they produce. Traditionally, one of the most common projects that we see is grain bins, but we also see cold storage for fruits and vegetables. We see bulk tanks for milk. Bulk tanks are possible for maple sap. We have things like tool cats for handling commodities that can be used, or skid steers, or certain types of equipment. As long as that equipment falls into that category of storage or handling, it's fairly expansive. But the big attraction on this are the interest rates. So we are seeing anything between 0.125% interest on that 3-year loan up to 0.75% interest on those 12-year loans or those longer loans, and they go up to $500,000. There's also a micro loan option available under the farm storage facility loan, which is under $50,000 or under. The difference between the micro loan is it's a slightly smaller application process, and you don't have to pay the full 15% down payment. You're looking at a 5% down payment. So there's some definite benefits to that, as well as on that lower end of the terms, you're looking at those lower interest rates. There's just a really broad amount of storage and handling equipment that can be used under this program, and it's something that definitely is applicable to ag in an urban setting. I'll touch really shortly on this. SCORE is another item that we've partnered with the Small Business Administration here at USDA, and what they actually do is provide mentorship for farm businesses through USDA and SCORE. And so if a new and beginning farmer is interested in navigating that and looking for mentorship, SCORE is an option for that, creating a business plan, creating that marketing plan, and working through those things with somebody who's more experienced. So I want to leave you with a couple things here, and that is that we're here to support your needs. Like Carl said, it's our USDA, and we do encourage you guys to reach out to us. And while many of those doors are locked out in those county offices, that doesn't mean that our service centers aren't open for business. We want to hear from our customers. We want you calling us. We want to continue to work with you and support ag in the ways that we can. Here, I just wanted to include a few links regarding newfarmers.usda.gov is a website that provides a pretty good portal on different programs and opportunities across that USDA family of agencies. That farmers.gov/CFAP commodities, that's where you're going to see those different commodity rates under that program. And the important thing that I forgot to mention earlier is the deadline for that is December 11th. So if you've got those commodities that are eligible, please contact your office, make that application now before the deadline. And then the other thing that I put in here, and I think this is an interesting tool, is there is a document that was put out by USDA that it's a toolkit for urban agriculture. And it's another one of these things that kind of crosses the gamut of what does NRCS have to offer? So they talk about EQIP and CSP. What does FSA have to offer? And it talks about farm loans and micro loans and facility loans. And while it's a highly technical document, it's a good place to start when trying to identify some of those mechanisms that exist to support urban ag and beginning farmers. And then I will always put in a plug for this, but at the end here, down at the bottom, we've got that fsa.usda.gov/subscribe. That is a way for you to subscribe to your local newsletters. And what we do in those is include information about deadlines and programs as they become available. We have a number of new programs that roll out through USDA on a regular basis. And this year, Coronavirus Food Assistance Program is just one of them. And this is one way for you to ensure that you're not missing out on those opportunities as they become available. So that was kind of the very short version.
Yeah. So there is a wealth of programs out there.
Absolutely, and we can go into a lot more detail with those, but the long story short is that, you know, if you're a beekeeper or you're raising livestock or a fruit and vegetable grower, there's probably a program available to you that might support your business. So there's the question I see in the chat of, does LIP include predation losses? It does. Okay. So for certain federally protected species, including wolves, for the portions of the state that are affected by those, wolves are part of livestock program.
But if somebody's got a garden and raccoons, or that's not predation, but if they got chickens, coyotes, any of that sort of things.
So with it, it has to be a federally protected species that is doing the predation. Yep.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that. Good to know.
Yep. And I believe maybe there's somebody from FSA on the line, but I believe there are some avian predators as well.
Oh, you were correct. Sure. Yeah.
Dan did mention the coronavirus food assistance program, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to let folks know that there is a CFAP2 webinar coming up tomorrow, hosted by a number of partners. And I can put a link to that in the chat here, but folks will be, presenting kind of the ins and outs of the application, who's eligible, and whatnot. And there'll be a couple farmers, I think, that are sharing, their experience through it. So if you're interested in that program, you can join us tomorrow at noon.
Well, that's tomorrow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the Farmers Legal Action Group has their updated guide. Farmer's Guide to the Coronavirus Assistance Program, 3rd edition. I'll link that. Okay, excellent. Any other questions, comments from any of the presenters? There was some discussion about different language publications. Yara, do you have some?
Yes, I was just going to add here, Carl, thank you. Just want to say I'm also the Hispanic Emphasis Program Manager for the state. So any, if somebody's looking to reach out to, learn more about our program, we can assist with that as well. I've worked with some Hispanic producers before, just to make the process easier as far as translation and everything else. So we're here to help. So.
Absolutely. And the same thing would go for USDA Farm Service Agency as well. We have fact sheets and information that's available in multiple languages. We also provide the service of translating documents and fact sheets to additional languages, as well as interpretation or translation at no additional cost to our customers. So, for those of you who are our customers or partners, just know that those services are available, and to reach out to your local county office or myself regarding the availability of those documents or services.
Excellent. It's 4:30, so I want to be respectful of people's time, but I'll hang out. If people want to hang out and ask more questions, no problem. This has been recorded, so we'll post that. And then Brian sent his PowerPoint already, and I will post that. And there's all kinds of materials on the website already. So at this time, I would just like to say thank you all so much, Dan and Keith and Brian and the rest of the wonderful USDA folks and all the people that chimed in. I hope this was useful. You got our emails, you got our phone numbers, and let's keep connected. And I'm working on a couple other events coming up here, so stay tuned for that. Any last words from anybody?
Thank you, Carl. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. This was really nice. I learned a lot too.